Happy February 29th, everyone. I hope you're not stuck at the office like me today, but quick legal question. If you're born on February 29th, when do you legally turn the next age? Legal age is measured in calendar years, so it doesn't matter that February 29th doesn't exist 3 out of every 4 years. If you were born on February 29th, you just have to count 365 days until you're legally considered the next age. Another thing that we don't take into consideration is time. For instance, if you were born at 11 p.m., you don't have to wait till 11 p.m. on your birthday to legally be the next age. Have a good Saturday, everyone. TikTok, I'm going to start a series about your legal rights during the COVID-19 outbreak. I'm going to be covering questions like, do you have to go to school? Do you have to go to work? If you miss work, do you have to be paid? And if the outbreak gets really bad, can the government force people to be quarantined? These are all really interesting legal topics, and in today's video, I'm going to pose a hypothetical to you. Let's say that one of your coworkers just got back from China. Can you and your co-employees demand that that employee not come to work or work from home? Yes, you can. Under Section 7 of the National Labor Relations Act, employees can engage in something called collective, conservative, protective activity. You have a right to a safe work environment, and if your request is found reasonable under a court of law, you would be more than justified in demanding that that employee stay home, or in the alternative, you and your co-employees not showing up to work, regardless of whether or not you're in a union. Ask me questions. Hey TikTok, time for part 2 of your legal rights with respect to COVID-19. And in this video, I'm going to be talking about something that I built upon the last video, and that's removal of an employee from the workplace. Specifically, I'm going to identify who exactly is a high-risk coworker who you can demand be removed from the workplace for at least 14 days. These are individuals who have 1. Traveled from the Hubei province in China. 2. Individuals who have provided care in a non-healthcare setting to someone who is symptomatic of COVID-19. 3. Someone who is the intimate partner of someone symptomatic with COVID-19. And 4, someone who is living with someone symptomatic of COVID-19. Remember, if someone is a high-risk coworker, they can be removed from the workplace for up to 14 days. They can't be fired for it. You can't be fired for asking. In my next video, I'm going to teach you how to identify medium-risk coworkers. And if there are any gaps in knowledge, watch my previous videos. Hey TikTok, this is part 3 of my series of your legal rights during the COVID-19 outbreak. In this video, we're still talking about the workplace, specifically how to identify medium-risk employees and what rights you have to ensure you have a safe workplace. First of all, let me just say there's no legislation on COVID-19, and I'm using the definitions of high risk and medium risk from the CDC. I'm then parlaying these risk pools to what I think are reasonable requests to make under the National Labor Relations Act. Okay, what makes someone medium risk? 1, living with someone who is symptomatic of COVID-19 while using proper precautions. 2, an intimate partner of someone with COVID-19 while using proper precautions. 3, providing care in a non-healthcare setting of someone symptomatic of COVID-19 while using the correct precautions. 4, travel to mainland China, not to any area that has high risk. 5, any close contact with someone with COVID-19. Out of time, following up on the next video. Hey TikTok, this video is part 4 of your legal rights during the COVID-19 outbreak. This is the last COVID-19 video I'm going to be making today. It's 6:30 at night. I've been at the office all day, and this video is going to be short, just wrapping up my previous video. Medium risk employees, they should be removed from the office for the 14-day incubation period, and they shouldn't be allowed back in the office except for very limited circumstances. This is different than high-risk workers who should be removed from the office for the 14-day incubation period with no exceptions of them coming in. The reason why 14 days is important is that is the incubation period that the CDC has said that COVID-19 stays in the body before it becomes active. Again, any worker who's removed can't be fired for that, and you can't be fired for asking for a safe work environment. Know your rights, and tomorrow I'll probably touch on the topic of the education system. Someone who actually represents people injured in 18-wheeler collisions, including 18-wheeler drivers. This person is a disgrace. Not only are they a danger to 18-wheeler drivers and the public, they wouldn't recover any money at trial. This is my cat. Hey TikTok, this is part 5 of your legal rights during the COVID-19 outbreak, and in today's videos I'm going to be primarily answering the question of your rights as it pertains to schools. Specifically, I want to look at some of the questions like, do you have to go to school? Do your kids have to go to school? Who makes the decision whether or not to cancel school on a mass level? If you decide to pull your kids out of school, are there any consequences? Things like that. The first thing that I need you to know is that unless the president orders a quarantine of a certain area or other very limited circumstances, the decision to close schools primarily falls to each state. The states have this right under the police powers reserved to them in the 10th Amendment. I'm a licensed Texas attorney and I don't represent to know the law of all the states, but I hope that these videos can give you the process of what questions to ask to give you some better clarity to make the right decision for yourself or your family. And don't be afraid to consult your local attorney. Hey TikTok, this is part 6 of my analysis on your legal rights during the COVID-19 outbreak. In this video, I'm going to be discussing how state-run institutions such as schools will be closed, if they are closed. Again, every state is different, so you should look up the laws of your own state if you're interested, but I imagine everything's going to be pretty similar, so I'm going to use my home state of Texas as an example. In Texas, the governor, the Department of State Health, and the local health authorities all have different varying levels of authority. But essentially, it's up to the governor first to properly diagnose and then give a declaration of disaster. If a disaster declaration is given, the governor can then suspend the normal order of state business, which includes schools. Again, every state is different, but I would begin by looking at the posture of your governor's office. In my next video, I'm going to be talking about whether you or your family could pull out of school before an official state suspension is given. Hey TikTok, this is part 7 of your legal rights during the COVID-19 outbreak. And in this video, I'm going to be talking about your ability to withdraw your kids from school before an official state closure. So first of all, let me just say it depends. Every situation in every state is going to have different laws. And obviously, if the school's still open, then the state's official stance is that it's safe to go to school. And depending on how much school is missed and the laws of your state, you potentially open yourself up to liability under truancy or some other laws. If I had kids and I was worried about their health about going to school, I would 1, first consult my local education attorney, and 2, ask in writing for permission to withdraw my kids from school. The worst they can do is say no. I'm sorry I can't give advice on any one particular instance. I'm doing the best I can. The next video is going to be about your rights during a state of emergency, followed by a video about the rights of healthcare workers, then we'll go from there. Thank you so much for your patience, everyone. Hey TikTok, so I've been on this app for about 4 days and there's something that I want to address. Clearly, it's a popular genre on this app for people to show off their wealth, and maybe because I just paid my office rent today, I wanted to touch on that real quick. For anybody who's out there who's just barely getting by financially, I just wanted to say me too. I started a law firm last year, and between my office rent, my payroll, my case expenses, and my personal expenses, I'm barely getting by. Don't get me wrong, I love what I do. My team and I fight for our clients every single day, and I hope that I'm building a secure foundation for myself in the future. But for all those people who are working hard, busting their butt, don't get caught up with what you see on this app. I'd be willing to bet that most people are living a life that is not reflective of their on-screen personality. Keep pushing yourself. We'll get there. Thanks for listening. I'm going to be making some more content about the COVID-19 virus later today. Hey TikTok, this is part 8 of your legal rights during the COVID-19 outbreak. And in this video, I'm going to be discussing what happens during a state of emergency. First things first, what is a state of emergency? Well, a state of emergency is a situation in which the governing authority has privileges to perform certain tasks that they normally wouldn't have. And in extreme cases, this could even mean the suspension of civil rights or other freedoms. However, most of the time, state of emergencies are declared because the governing authority needs to fast-track budgetary constraints to obtain aid. However, it is possible for the governing authority to implement movement bans during a state of emergency and even curfews. However, just because a state of emergency is declared does not mean that your civil liberties are necessarily suspended or there's a suspension of habeas corpus. And as of today, March 2nd, I believe the only state that has declared a state of emergency is Washington. The next video will touch on the rights of healthcare workers. Did you download TikTok as a joke and are now addicted? Did you make a great video and it didn't get the likes it deserves? If that's the case, you need to message me right now. Because I'm addicted too. Maybe we can collab or something. Hey TikTok, I'm just leaving the courthouse, but I wanted to make a quick video about the Tennessee tornadoes that happened last night, specifically how to preserve your legal rights if you were affected by them. First of all, let me just say what happened last night was a tragedy. My mom actually lives in Nashville, and luckily she's okay. And for anyone who might have lost a loved one, was injured, or had property damage, my thoughts are with you. And if you were affected, this is my tip to you. Please, please, please document and photograph any damage you may have suffered, property or bodily. And before all the trolls out there comment about how I'm talking about bringing legal action immediately after a tragedy, let me just say this. I'd be willing to bet that the first thing the insurance carriers did this morning was hold a meeting about how they can get away from this event for as cheap as possible. And if you want help navigating this process, or you're unhappy with your insurance company's assessment of your damage, go hire a local Tennessee lawyer. Hey TikTok, this is part 9 of your legal rights during the COVID-19 outbreak, and in this video I'm going to be talking about the rights of healthcare workers. First of all, let me just say this. Healthcare workers will likely have a harder time to prove that they are in an unsafe work environment under the NLRA because effectively the position that they're in is to treat people who very well may be infected with contagious diseases. But here are the rights healthcare workers do have. Healthcare workers have the right to reasonable access to the proper tools to safely carry out their job, such as quarantine equipment. Healthcare workers shall not be required to put their lives, their physical health, or their families' lives at risk. And healthcare workers have the right to sufficient personal time during shifts to make sure they are well hydrated and nourished. And finally, healthcare workers have the right to bring forward a complaint in a court of law without losing their employment. Of course, there are more rights that healthcare workers are entitled to as well. Let me know in the comments what COVID-19 topic I should cover next. Hey TikTok, this is part 9 of your legal rights during the COVID-19 outbreak, and in this video I'm going to be talking about the rights of healthcare workers. First of all, let me just say this. Healthcare workers will likely have a harder time to prove that they are in an unsafe work environment under the NLRA because effectively the position that they're in is to treat people who very well may be infected with contagious diseases. But here are the rights healthcare workers do have. Healthcare workers have the right to reasonable access to the proper tools to safely carry out their job, such as quarantine equipment. Healthcare workers shall not be required to put their lives, their physical health, or their families' lives at risk. And healthcare workers have the right to sufficient personal time during shifts to make sure they are well hydrated and nourished. And finally, healthcare workers have the right to bring forward a complaint in a court of law without losing their employment. Of course, there are more rights that healthcare workers are entitled to as well. Let me know in the comments what COVID-19 topic I should cover next.
I'm crying 'cause I love
you. COVID-19 legal update 10. LA County has 6 cases of coronavirus and they declared a state of emergency. So far, the state of emergency is likely issued to expedite funding and no mandatory quarantines have been issued. I'll keep you updated on the situation and let you know if any rights are suspended. Can members of fraternities be held personally responsible for any crimes or torts committed by the fraternity as a whole? The short answer is yes. Let's say you bought booze for a party and an underage person got hurt while drinking through no fault of your own. Well, you could very well be responsible. Hey TikTok, this is part 11 of your legal rights during the COVID-19 outbreak. The Houston Chronicle just reported that we have our first case of COVID-19 in Houston. No state of emergency has been called yet, so all schools and businesses are still on. I'll keep you updated if something changes. This is why you shouldn't be late to work. Alex was rushing into the office and she slammed into that wall right there, trying to get to her parking spot. Alex, do you need a lawyer?
Yes.
Hey TikTok, this is part 12 of your legal rights during the COVID-19 outbreak, and in this video I'm going to be discussing California's state of emergency, which they declared yesterday. Why was a state of emergency declared? Well, according to Governor Newsom, here are some of the abilities the government gains by declaring a state of emergency. 1, it allows state agencies to more readily acquire the proper equipment to fight the disease by expediting funding. 2, it gives the government more ability to share information on patients who have COVID-19 that they otherwise wouldn't be able to do. 3, it lifts the restrictions on the use of certain state-owned properties. And 4, it activates certain price gouging protections to prevent vendors from raising the prices on things like hand sanitizer. Of course, there are other abilities that the government obtains by declaring a state of emergency as well. At the end of the day, this is a balancing act. I'm not saying this is a bad thing, but when the government gains abilities, people lose individual rights. More to come. This is why you shouldn't be late to work. Alex was rushing into the office and she slammed into that wall right there, trying to get to her parking spot. Alex, do you need a lawyer?
Yes.
Will Kim Kardashian make a good lawyer? In my opinion, yes. Anybody who's willing to work their butt off to earn the qualifications of a lawyer in order to help the disenfranchised and wrongfully convicted is going to be a great lawyer, and I'll welcome her to TikTok once she gets on. What are your rights if COVID-19 is affecting your ability to perform under a contract? With COVID-19 spreading rapidly within the states and most of China's supply chain already down or facing significant delays, it's very well possible that a lot of people's contracts with interbusiness relations are being affected. If you have a contract that you think you'll be unable to perform because of COVID-19, you need to see if there's a force majeure or an act of God clause in the contract. An act of God clause often defines a natural event that occurs that makes it unable to perform under the terms of the contract. Normal act of gods are things like tornadoes or hurricanes. And even if your contract does have an act of God clause, doesn't mean you're out of the woods just yet. That's because U.S. courts have yet to determine whether COVID-19 or a virus like this constitutes an act of God. But if you find yourself in this situation, you need to go consult a local attorney. More COVID-19 legal right videos to come.
Hey, you got it?
Yeah, I got it.
How much?
$50 a bottle.
Deal.
Yesterday, top Texas judicial officials appointed 2 district court judges in each county who are always on call to hold involuntary quarantine hearings for anybody who may have COVID-19. And this quarantine could last indefinitely. Stay safe and know your rights. Hey TikTok, I know this is corny, but try to tell your family and friends that you love and appreciate them today. I just got back from meeting my new clients who lost their father and husband in a tragic accident a few days ago, and they would do anything to tell him that they love him. Can sporting events like the MLB, the NBA, and the Olympics be canceled because of the coronavirus? Yes, according to USA Today, the NBA is already having contingency plans put in place that if COVID-19 or the coronavirus gets really bad, they will play their games behind closed doors, meaning no fans will be allowed into the stadium and only the games will be telecast on TV. Additionally, the MLB has already put in place some plans to mitigate the risk of spreading COVID-19, and the Olympic Committee has come out and said that the Summer Olympics could potentially happen anytime during the year. These are all private organizations and they have no obligation to allow fans into the stadium if they want. Of course, they would have to issue refunds if games were canceled and you'd already bought a ticket. Let me know in the comments what topics y'all want me to cover next. Hey TikTok, I'm going to be making a series about how to try and beat traffic tickets. In this video, I'm going to be discussing the radar trap defense. While results are never guaranteed and I highly recommend you hire a local attorney, you're going to need to ask the officer 3 questions. The 3 questions are, 1, what type of radar gun do you have? 2, how often do you calibrate your radar gun? 3, when was the last time the radar gun was calibrated? If the police officer tells you that he calibrated the gun today and he calibrates the gun every day, the defense is this. Your Honor, the radar gun is clearly unreliable if the police officer has to calibrate it every single day. I clearly underestimated how long it would take to describe this defense, so make sure you subscribe and come back for part 2. Hey TikTok, I'm sitting on the floor of my office and my assistant Worth has just notified me that the New York Times is reporting that South by Southwest has been canceled due to the coronavirus. If you're concerned, watch my other videos about your legal rights during this outbreak.